Welcome to Spacious Unknowing Network, Communing with Your Soul. This is JoJo Rose
and JoJo Rose.
We invite you to enter into ecological equanimity in the unified field of spacious unknowing.
We open and awaken to broaden your access to the soul rhythm in all of us.
We engage in the pilgrimage inward to feel the infinite love that beats in the rhythm of our collective soul. We will guide you to new horizons and infinite love during our Inquire Within segment.
To accept that, you create your field.
I create my field. And together, we create the unified field.
Spacious Unknowing Network
with JoJo
and JoJo Rose starts now. Aloha and welcome to Spacious Unknowing Network, Communing with Your Soul. Thank you for Spacious Unknowing Network and the unified field of love, light, truth, and the universal flow of peace. Be still. I'm JoJo Rose, an initiate of Spacious Unknowing Network, and I'm here with Julie O, founder of Spacious Unknowing Network and author of her upcoming book, My Radical Life in Spacious Unknowing. Julie O, what is Spacious Unknowing Network?
Spacious Unknowing Network is an inner way to come into our inner life with communing with the soul. And most people want to know that they already know everything, but Spacious Unknowing is for us to truly know. And that true knowing that comes from within, from communing with our soul, allows us to truly know, and it's a directive. And it just flows into our life clearly with sound, with whatever it is we need to say or do or be present in with other people, with the world, with whomever. And it's a very profound way to be present in our lives. And also the network part, as we all know, we have a neural network that's inside of us. And it's very connected. It's connected up better when we are very aware of our inner life. And it's a knowing in, but that knowing in is used in the world. It isn't just we know in and sit on it. We know in, and it's a directive for living our life in a real way that is very profound to us and oftentimes to many others.
So it's like a dance, our inside into the outside, and we do the same with the people that are facing us. It's
that
infinity,
symbol.
yes.
Yes, an exchange of energy, of life flow.
Yes,
really, it's a flowing life.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have a story that expresses and really shows
how many do you want?
Yes, I know you have many.
Today it's the story about Jan, and it begins with my friend Anne and I receiving a phone call from Jan. I didn't know her, and Anne answered the phone, and she warned Anne that her husband was coming with a shotgun to kill us. And so that was it. That was the phone call. Anne got off the phone and she said to me, well, Jan's husband's coming with a shotgun to kill us because we're taking up space on the planet.
Oh my goodness.
We cracked up laughing. It was so comical to us. What's he going to kill? Truth? what's going to kill our body? You can't kill truth. And we went on with our day. That was that. So the next day, Jan called Anne again and said, what happened? Because she obviously knew he didn't show up. And so she said, Anne was dumbfounded by what Jan said. She said, after she heard how Anne and I had responded to that phone call, she said, I want to be fearless in the face of death. Can you come show me how to be fearless like you and your friend? And Anne said, well, how about if you come tomorrow and we'll schedule the way for us to be with you in this. So she did. She came the next day, and we realized she maybe had 3 days a week that were possible. And they were mainly from like 10 to 2 in the afternoon, which was fine with us. So we started the next day. And it was profound because what I realized through Jan is that she had such a clear knowing of what she needed. Oh. It was a directive. She had nothing hanging out that didn't want this to be fulfilled in her life, because every day she was threatened with death. And she knew that this was her opportunity to become fearless and not let it hold her hostage in her life. So the first day when we arrived, she had beautiful big muffins and coffee for us. And so we sat, and she told us how she had been abused by men all her life. So I just listened and just was present with her in consciousness. And I said, Jan, what inhabits you that would allow you to suffer this abuse? And she paused for a moment and said, well, I am chosen. And I said, oh, I knew I had heard this quite a lot from a lot of women in the church that I had met up with through the years. And I knew what a false idea it was. And Jan gave me the opportunity to really be present with her in this. And I said, Jan, what's free will? And she was very taken aback. And she said, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, it's really important. You have a true knowing that you want to be fearless, need to be fearless in the face of death. That can only happen if you join your will to it wholeheartedly. Do you realize that if you have the idea that you're chosen, your husband isn't? He's wrong and bad. And that's coming from you thinking you're wrong and bad. Oh, I give him, Jan said this, I give him permission to abuse me. Ah, she's a quick study. Yes. So the learning comes from you coming into your inner being and understanding you. Because once you understand you and the way you think, feel, and act, you're going to be quite surprised at what's going to happen for you. So the beginning is you beginning to be present in your life and wanting to understand who you are, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how you're acting, so that you're more connected with your, I would say, deep-rooted belief systems that have bound you to this idea of chosen in the form of suffering and allowing yourself to be a doormat. So the only way that can change is if you change your way of thinking, feeling, and acting. And that's always such a gift to ourselves, because how do we do that? And there's only one way that I know of, and that's communing with our soul, because the ego usurps the power of our soul. So if we're not being just thinking and feeling our feelings that are hurt feelings and letting them fester, and not really having ourself, because that takes over and it's attached to, and it's very constricting. So to come into that and realize that the mind is inflexible and rigid, the fullness of the understanding of an unyielding heart, because to go into spacious unknowing, we need to yield to that knowing, the inner knowing that is so genuinely truthful. And we also have to see that all of this is behavior and acting out, and come home to understand, what in the world does that mean?
So because Jan saw herself as chosen, she was judging not only herself, but judging everyone she came in contact with.
Yeah,
That was the lens through which she saw
yeah,
herself and her life and the people in it. That's so.
yeah.
And then her directive was,
It's so common.
oh, it is.
JoJo,
Yes.
is so common.
Yeah, it is.
For people to feel and think that way.
Mhm.
And it's such a, I call it character assassination, that people do to young children this way.
Yeah, yes.
They just destroy the character of that person, because that little child, whether it's in an adult or in a child, is so vulnerable. And to dominate them with sounds that are harmful, and will be harmful probably until they decide they want to change those sounds.
Yes.
And it is breaking the sound barrier. And by that, I mean that the sounds that are in continuum inside affect everything in someone's life, how they behave, how they act out, how they view people. And that was the next thing with Jan was, however you see and hear is what you see out here. So if you're unhappy and you're chosen and you see someone else acting out in your eyes, you judge them. And that takes a lot of energy. All the energy that you have inside that could be used differently can't be, because it's used up by judgment. So she was so fast and so quick with understanding that, yeah, she was the one who needed to change. And so it was time for us to go, and we did. And we gave big hugs all around, and it was just, and we decided, I think it was 2 more days before we would return to be with her. And when Ann and I got in the car and drove back, I said, I'm going for a swim. How about you? Oh, I gotta take a long walk. So we decided on the walk. So we walked and talked, as we always did. And we realized that, just sitting and being present with another being we needed activity. We needed to be just quiet. And we got back to the house 45 minutes later. We had no idea that we had walked that much.
Yeah.
But it was good. And although we had had lunch with Jan, we decided to have a little pick-me-up. And Ann made the best bread in a cast iron frying pan that I had never seen anyone do it that way before. And just, it was delightful, so delicious. And we were where there was an orange, oranges everywhere. So we went out and picked some oranges and used that instead of milk in the bread. And oh, they were nuts and I think figs or dates, one or the other.
Yes.
And just, oh, the best bread in the world. And we had some of that. So definitely our life was filled with learning every day, universally, just really being present with our inner life and the way it worked and studying certain books or things that were beneficial. And
that really helped to grow. I've learned that with you. It's like what you choose to read or pay attention to or watch or listen to does make a difference in feeding your soul, feeding your interior,
yeah.
letting your, I would say, letting your electromagnetic field grow in a
Mhm.
way that is beneficial
Get
to you.
electrified.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And that's really, we do need food for our physical body,
Mhm.
and we do need food for our mind, and we need food for our soul, spirit, because spirit is breath. It's our breath.
Yes.
And the breath of life is in that magnetic field. It's what creates it. And so how we talk, how we think, it's all here in the field. So when people meet us, they really meet our field first. And it can be sunshiny and bright, or it can be dark and gloomy, or it can be medium, kind of indifferent.
Yes.
I'm here, but I'm not here kind of thing. So it really is how we see ourselves, feel inside, and the way we respond to life. And that's vital. And we can't do that without understanding that we are many, many aspects, and making sure that we learn to be interested in all these different ways of living that are all over our planet, so that we're attuned. We really get that it's important for us to understand that we're inclusive with everything and not be exclusive with just ourself and blood relations, but blood runs through every human soul that's here.
Yeah.
So here I am.
That's a great way to describe community. I mean, I can really feel that. And what has happened in our world today, I know this is a little bit, I want to get back to the Jan story, but you bring up the point of community and how now there's so many people, especially in the last 2 years, where people are afraid to be in community, be face to face, be wanting to be with each other. And it's so different. And
they shrink from life instead of
yes,
embracing
exactly.
it. And I always say, hug it to ya.
Yes.
Hug that
Cuddle,
right
cuddle,
to ya.
Yeah. Bring it in.
Yeah, because honestly, what else do we have?
Yeah.
And if we have ourselves, we have everything.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's really the truth. So to give ourselves to ourselves so we understand better what's going on inside here, it really does not only change us in our insides, it changes us in the way we live our life and what we see and how we are in our life is so, it's always a wonder. It's always a wonder. Truthfully, it's always a wonder.
So did you go back and
We
visit
did.
Jan?
We did. So again, it was around 10 in the morning. So she had coffee and some special thing she had made for breakfast for us. And we chatted for a little while, but I'm not a chatter. So I definitely get right into the meat of why we're meeting. And so she had begun,
Mm.
and she had realized that she could feel and see how she had given men permission to abuse her all of her life. And that was still true with her husband. She knew that she was still afraid. She got that. But she also felt that she could do this. She could and would come into a field of fearless in the face of death. So I said, well, one of the things that we all have to do is die daily, Jan, die daily to those thoughts, feelings, and all the things that would have been in your makeup that would have caused all of that. And is still causing it. As you shed those things, because you really are in touch with them, you will feel so much different, and you will begin to notice differences in the way you're in your life with other people. So she was very speaking from how she had been in touch with how she talked to herself. She was so surprised at the sounds she made to herself. It was, she just could see that she had been her own worst enemy. And that though that wasn't changed, she was just now becoming aware of it. But definitely she was.
So she could hear it for the
it.
first time for herself, what
Exactly.
she was saying to herself, not just what her husband was saying or doing, but what she was actually having go on inside of herself.
And she was in touch with, he said some of the same words to her.
Yes,
that
of
she
course.
was
Yes.
saying to herself.
Yes.
Which is always the way it works. But if you don't understand the inner workings of it, it's a puzzle.
Yeah.
And people lament that they don't understand and don't necessarily know what's going to bring understanding to them. And that was what was so wonderful about Jan, is that she recognized that she didn't know, that she didn't understand, that she didn't have self-knowledge that would have benefited her, but she was gonna get it. And that was the major talk each time we were with her was, but it wasn't just talk. She was absorbing, she was drinking in the love that Ann and I had for her, for this inner work that she was called into, and we were very integral to with her. And that's so important, to have someone or some few someones who really understand in a way that it's in consciousness and the person feels it and feels that they can trust that with the other person.
Yeah, it's the listening in. That's what I'm getting as you're talking. It's you and Anne really listened, and the word you spoke to her, and maybe even the inquiry that you brought to her opened her up. But like you said in the beginning, she had that directive. She had that really deep need to begin to live a different life. And the fact that she knew that and knew that you and Anne, she knew it. She knew you could be of service to her, and her willingness.
You know what? She did not have that clarity until she heard what Ann and I had done with the shotgun thing. Story. You know what? She had never been able to say to herself, I need to be fearless in the face of death. She had a true purpose, a true commitment, a true knowing, and it had become her directive. So everything she was in to learn about herself, that was her major point of connection to keep her.
It carried her
Yeah,
because she had it so deep inside.
totally.
It carried her.
It was so beautiful, so beautiful. It's so rare to meet someone who is that committed to a singular understanding of the change she could make in her life now, after all these years, after all of what she had been through. She could see her way clear now. She wasn't yet there, and she knew it.
Yep.
She wasn't rushing things. She was very ready and present and available to herself and to us for the next. And she was so good with her inquiry. She really, and that's so major in this.
Yeah, it is.
Inquiry is very different from a question when you're going in. There has to be a genuine, heartfelt inquiry that allows something of great value to arise and speak
Yeah.
from the inner life to you. So, what inquiry did she have?
If I remember correct, or that she felt the peace you and Anne
Mhm.
had
Ah.
when she asked about what happened,
Mhm.
and you all, there was just such peace and that knowing. You just both knew, and you weren't, there was no fear whatsoever. There was peace in the place of that.
Yeah.
And I think in that moment she felt and knew that that's what she needed, because when you have fear and it grips you, it's hard to walk through that fear unless you have something that's bigger than that fear,
Yeah.
that you know that you need to come into.
Yes. And that was her inquiry. She really wanted to be able to reach that place inside of her that was peaceful and still. And she was in that inquiry because she did recognize that. And sometimes I forget about that because that's how I live. So thank you for reminding me, because it is that there has to be inquiry, there has to be interest. I would call it interest. We're interested in learning, what am I missing that if I had a little more of it, I would be more able to rise up, have that fire within me rise to my heart and open me in a way that would, oh, see something new that I haven't pondered, considered.
It really does come from need. You are needing something in your life that is different than what you have been in. And it does carry you, but the way I would describe it is it stirs the soul. It's like this, like the water, when the water gets moved, someone tosses a stone and the waves start to ripple. It has that same kind of feeling inside, like you're being stirred to something new, and you don't quite know what it is, but you're in it for the duration. You're in it for, let me get to the other side of this.
And that's the inquiry comes from that. Okay. That sound comes from that, which you just described very well. And from that inquiry now, there can be a response that really lets you understand, okay, I don't have peace. I really don't have peace. And I need peace before I can ever be fearless. And that was just a brand new awakened awareness that she had in that week when we had 2 days. 2 days.
Yes.
Oh my God, 2 days.
You know what I'm feeling as you're talking, and I've read this story, but I often get further insights when you and I speak. I'm seeing how I just had it. true inquiry, and you said this, true inquiry is us not, is us being willing to face something that maybe in the past we hadn't been comfortable facing. So when you and Anne did what you did, Jan was able to like supersede the deep-rooted fear that she had, to be in the inquiry, to know that she needed to change her life. And she wanted that peace. She wanted to be steadfast in that peace with herself, to be fearless in the face of death.
Yeah, often we need an example of someone.
Yes.
I remember when I was raising your children, and there was an older woman that I saw often. She was 92. And when she stepped out of her home, she looked like she came from the Vogue magazine. And she had given clear instructions to everyone to not ever call an ambulance if she got ill, to call, and she gave them all the number that they should call. She knew that she did not need that kind of medicine or that kind of doctoring. That was her total, complete belief system. And she was such an example of that.
Yes.
I wanted to read what she was reading. I wanted to have what she was having. And so I did. And that's really very much, she was an example to me of someone I admired. And I talked to her. I wanted to find out, what was she doing that made her the way she is?
Yeah.
And it was wonderful, because I had a whole brand new way to be with your children. And it was like, woohoo, yay.
That is such a great point.
Yeah.
And that is what Jan felt with you and Anne.
Exactly.
And on that note, because I really want to find out what happened with Jan. But on that note, we're going to go ahead and take a break. Please stay with us so that you can find out with me what happened with Jan. What change happened in her life. See you on the other side. Aloha. If you're just tuning in, you are listening to Spacious Unknowing Network. Julio, you were speaking and sharing Jan's story and speaking on the way she was recognizing how she spoke to herself is how other people in her life, especially her husband. What made that changeover? Would you consider that to be truth telling? Like,
that's exactly it, because she realized that we didn't coddle her. I don't coddle anybody. I never coddle myself. No. Why would I coddle anyone else?
You definitely do not coddle. You call people up.
Well, yes. I took her at her word. She wanted to become fearless in the face of death. She wasn't going to have that happen if she couldn't face herself. And so, yeah, truth telling was something she recognized in Anne and I. And she said it, you don't coddle anybody. And that is what she had done with her own self.
Yeah.
And she was learning to tell herself the truth about how she felt, about how she thought, about all of it, because she was beginning to reconnoiter with those sounds inside of her.
Yes.
And it was powerful to, again, have her do that, boom, so fast. And she realized that now she was in a brand new space, and she was receiving a sound that was so profoundly against what she learned in church. And we said, well, what's that word, Jan? And she said, alchemy. And I said, oh, alchemy, the universal solvent, love. And that's really a way of living that you're now in. And it really does change everything, because alchemy is, we're all made of chemistry. We all have hormones, and we have ways that blood flows and the lymph and all of it in our bodies. And so alchemy is like adding that communing with the soul. So there's an additional happening inside of our body that is greater than just ordinary living without understanding,
Yeah.
without wanting to clarify our path in life. So alchemy has those extra elements in it that assist us in living. And she loved it. She could feel it. She felt it.
Yes.
Even while Anne and I spoke to her, she was feeling the vibration, the sound. So everything was changing, because in alchemy we feel the sound vibration, and it's more than just words. It's the word.
Yeah.
And it really hits home and it becomes integral to us. And we talked about how words are made flesh, and the word is made flesh.
Yeah.
And we get to pick and choose which way we're going to live. And so she was learning how to be with the word that had the vibration in it, that consciousness in it, that alchemy in it.
Yes.
And that comes from the spacious unknowing that allowed her to start knowing that that particular word, the way she had been introduced to it ever so many times in her church life, was no longer the way that it had been.
So she moved from the doctrine and
Dogma. Yeah.
To the
Yes.
truth
Yeah.
that's in the word.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you do need you need that inner movement, that inner flow to understand truth. Yeah.
Yeah. And without that, we're flying blind, you know.
Yes.
And there's so many people who really want to learn, and it's too long and arduous. They just don't exactly know what that's supposed to feel like or be like, or, you know, so they're very they'd rather hold back than move into something new that is unknown to them.
Yes.
I think that, yeah, I know. And
I know that life very well. That's for another show.
But people are afraid of the unknowns.
Yeah, they are.
And already those unknowns are in their life, showing themselves to us. But unless somebody opens up to want to be aware of that, they think the unknown is really, really unknown.
Yeah.
And then when they begin to want to understand what those unknowns are, they go, oh, well, that's been here all along.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Where was I?
Yeah.
And it's helpful.
Yes.
Because it feels like a let down, let go. I don't have to be feeling like I'm stuck anymore. I can really see that there's unknowns now. This is how Jan felt. There's unknowns now that I'm beginning to embrace because it feels natural to me.
Yeah.
And that's always a true change in our own inner life. It's more than just an idea or a thought or even feelings. It's more of we feel it. It's different from feelings. Feelings can be from heart.
Feelings can carry you away into,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And it can have that same movement, but rather than aeration and movement that's free flowing, it's movement that moves you downward in the downward spiral.
Yeah.
And that is what fear can do. And yet Jan knew she needed to have the peace and to be fearless in the face of death. So, and because she was so clear in that, she did take in the word that you spoke to her. She did bring it home.
And I did.
Yeah. Anne and you did. That it's what a story So,
Well, I don't even like to think of it as a story.
no, it's not. It
Mainly
was a
because this is
happening.
a human being.
Yes,
And she was learning
that's
how
true.
to live in her being
Yeah.
as well as her humanness.
Yes.
And I always say the being really of us is like our divinity or our higher truth in us. And when we allow ourselves to join the consciousness of this, mainly, I think Jan was learning that the life she had lived was who she thought she
Yeah.
was. And this life was who she really is.
Yes.
And how different they were was becoming known to her.
Mhm.
And she liked the difference. And so she was continuing to do this inner work when we weren't there, which was a major,
Mhm.
what we left with her each time that we left. So I'm kind of moving, instead of saying we're going there today, I'm moving with what was really unfolding quickly in her life. And she now was telling us that she still was afraid. And there was a part of her that didn't quite understand with all these changes why that was still there, but she wasn't going to belabor the point.
Yeah.
She really wanted to continue because she knew the same way all these other things had revealed themselves to her. And she was getting more clear about who she is in truth. She would definitely fulfill
Yeah.
the purpose for which she had entered into this. And for her, she recognized that it truly was the dying daily. And she had an epiphany. And the epiphany was that I realized that I was as much afraid to live
Mhm.
as I've been afraid to die.
Yeah.
And Ann and I said, yeah, that's a universal common understanding that people
Yes.
come to, that the life that they were living wasn't living.
Yeah.
And the death that they've been afraid of isn't dying.
Yes.
It's really all the same thing.
Yes.
And so she was quite forthcoming with that. For her was really assisting her in feeling that she would be there. She would be able to complete
Yes.
what she intended, and soon. So that was very real.
Yeah.
And Ann and I were thrilled because we knew that she didn't take anything for granted anymore. She was very willing to face whatever it was she needed to face. So we suspected she'd be calling us pretty soon, letting us know.
Yes.
And that was very touching. Very touching.
Did you get that phone call soon?
Oh my gosh. We had to not see her for a week. And we received a phone call, or Ann did, from her. And she said, can you come here right now? And Ann said, sure. So we got in the car and went. And she was effusive when she opened the door. She was a different woman. Ann had never seen her that way and had known her in years. And of course, I had just known her for this short period of time. She couldn't stop talking. She talked for 2 hours.
Wow.
It appeared that her husband once again had threatened her with the gun, threatened her with death. And she stood stock still and said to him, shoot me, kill me now. He got on the floor, prone, on his tummy, and was kissing her feet And he kept kissing her feet and he said, I love you, I love you, I love you. You're the queen of my life. And when he stood up, they held each other. She had never felt such love in her life. From herself, from him, from love, just love surrounding them, encompassing them, just very real and true. And she was so filled. And Ann and I were delighted because, it just poured out of her and we were recipients with her.
Yes.
And she was so amazed that everything was changed. And he told her he wanted to build her a master bedroom with everything she ever wanted. And he said, and I want you to design it. Well, this was big because previously she would get beautiful ideas and creative things and share them with him. And when they were at a party, he would tell everyone, but he would say that he had the idea. So now he was asking her to design and he would build.
Oh, wow.
And everything had changed. And I could tell she didn't have to adjust to the change. She was now in it and it was in her and she was delighted. So 2 hours later, we went back and left there and hugged. And again, a few days from then, we got another call from her.
Wow.
And can you come right now? She was a right now person now.
Yes.
No waiting around. So we did. And she said, my whole family is changed. And they have so much love and they hear me and we talk about things we've never talked about. My whole life is different, not only with my husband, but my children and family, bigger family.
Yeah.
I'm so happy, so happy. And thanked Ann and I profusely, and we all hugged and we left. So that was 3 months.
Wow.
This all happened in 3 months. And I would have to say that it was because she had such a clear purpose. And then she stayed with it. And she assured us before we left that day that she would continue. She would never take anything for granted again. She would continue to do her inner work every single day.
What a story. I mean, you spoke of example of the older woman, and what an example of that when someone is really real and knows they need a change and they stay with it, what can happen?
Yeah.
What can the reality of that change and how it can be realized in the life manifest.
And we must, all of us, never be afraid to approach someone that we admire from a distance and get up close and personal with them and ask them about it. Because that is the way we change.
Yeah.
That is the way we accept a community and communing, not only here, but communing with other beings.
Yeah.
And we can do that any day in the week.
Yes, we can.
And we do.
Good fun.
And
that's part of what makes life fun, is that having that connection, making that connection with another human being and lighting up from them and seeing them light up from that connection with each other.
Exactly. And that's an important way to live because it is vital. It vitalizes us. It really is, soul in Italian would be anima, and it animates us.
Yeah.
And makes us more grounded as well as present in our lives, because there's nothing like being with other people. And of course, solitude's wonderful. I really appreciate my solitude. And I also appreciate being with people because it is where you apply it all
Right. Yes.
and you see the way it works or
Yeah.
doesn't, and you come back home and voila.
Both and are very vital to this life.
Yes.
This life in Spacious Unknowing Network.
Yeah.
The solitude and the community. Both and.
Yeah, and it changes our world.
Yes, it does.
That's of great value.
It is.
And each one who comes into this changes the world in their world. And then they find themselves expanding that, which means that any and all beings who come into this can change the whole world.
Yeah.
And that is
Yes.
the beauty of living in a new way and being more present with oneself and any and all beings who come within our range or at a distance, because the way it is now, we can be on Zoom with a
Yeah,
lot of
people.
and we may not ever have met them face to face, but we might meet them face to face. And we've traveled and we know how wonderful it is to be in other places
Yes.
and learn another culture. And yeah, that's vital to us,
Yeah. it
as
is.
well as up personal.
Personal and close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And rich.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing what happened with Jan in her life. And the importance of not only your presence and Anne's presence with her, but her presence with herself and with the two of you.
Mhm.
That really did change her life.
And then her family and,
And
her
her
husband.
family,
and
yes.
Everyone. And
Yeah.
that's how it works.
It is.
When someone works that inner life, that's how it works. It's never different. The only thing that makes it different is if they don't do their own inner work and they don't get to experience the changes that are possible.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the ticket. That's it.
Yes, it is. Well, Julio, it's time to say goodbye to our listeners.
All
But we're
right.
not saying goodbye. We're saying until next time. So thank you so much for being here with us. We invite you to please go to our website, spaciousunknowing.com. Sign in to become part of the Spacious Unknowing Network community to receive your Spacious Unknowing meditations.
Sign up.
Sign up. Yes, please. We would love to meet you. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you next time. Aloha.